this is our second ward meeting, Ward 5 Public Safety meeting.
Recording in
we had one
progress.
last year, but we had it at the municipal building. So this is the first one we're having here in the ward. We're hoping to have more events here in the ward. So the format of this evening is I'm going to introduce my staff that has joined me here. Our crime analyst is going to provide you an overview of crime stats for 2023. And that just gives you an idea of the crime that occurred in the ward. We're also going to talk about some hot spots. After that, we're going to open it up to questions from people in the audience as well as people on Zoom. We're also going to answer any questions that we got via email prior to the start. So before we get started, I'm just going to introduce my staff that is here. All the way to my left, we have Misha Rowe, our crime analyst, who's going to be doing the crime presentation. We have Kathy Plevy, who is our public information officer and also my executive assistant. To my right, we have Captain Cody Evans, who's the operations commander. Sitting in the audience, we have Joseph Butler, who's investigative services commander. We also have Lieutenant Matthew Mazzotti, who is our patrol commander. We have Sergeant Kristen Peterson, who is our investigative services supervisor. And all the way in the back, we have Captain Michelle Holmes, who's our administrative services commander. And there he is, Ron Hardy, who's our emergency preparedness manager. He's got about, how many weeks? 5 weeks left before he retires. So this may be his last public safety meeting. Or, we'll probably pull him in for the Ward 1. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Rowe to provide an overview of the crime stats for 2023 citywide, and we're going to delve into more specifics for Ward 5.
Hello. Is this working for everyone? Yep. Okay. So my name is Misha Rowe. I'm the crime analyst for Takoma Park Police Department, and I'll just give a brief presentation going over some crime statistics for Ward 5. In the presentation, we'll go over the statistics, the annual report for 2023, and the comparisons and trends that we saw throughout that year, and then we'll concentrate on the patterns and trends that we saw in Ward 5 in 2023, as well as noting some hotspot locations or frequently repeated locations of crime incidents in Ward 5, as well as giving you a visual of where things are happening in Ward 5, and then a brief overview of assault incidents that we saw in 2023, as well as property crimes. So to begin, this is a visual depicting a comparison of Part 1 crimes from the year of 2022 to 2023 in Takoma Park. And to clarify for anyone is Part 1 crimes consists of homicide, rape, robbery, assault, burglaries, larcenies, theft from autos, and auto thefts. There are 8 of them. And we do look at all types of crimes in our statistics, but for the purposes of this presentation, we're just going to be focusing on those Part 1 crimes that give us the most information of what things are going on and where things are going on, et cetera. So to give an overview of the statistics and trends and patterns that we saw in 2023 in the whole city of Takoma Park, we saw a 50% increase in total crimes from 2022 to 2023 throughout the whole city. And that was a change of 716 crime incidents in 2022 to 1,073 in 2023. Crimes that we saw a decrease in 2023 compared to 2022 were homicide and rape, and crimes that we saw an increase in 2023 compared to 2022 were robbery, assault, burglary, larceny, theft from autos, and auto thefts. And then to narrow down our focus a little more on each of the wards in Takoma Park, Ward 6 was in the majority of the crime incidents that occurred in Takoma Park in 2023. Ward 6 accounted for 52% of the crime that occurred in Takoma Park in 2023, which was 554 incidents. And Ward 2 accounted for 23% of the crime in 2023 with 249 incidents. And Ward 5 in particular accounted for 5% of the crimes in 2023. We saw a decrease in Ward 3 in 2023 compared to 2022. Yes, and then we saw increases in wards 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 in 2023 compared to 2022. And again, this is just another visual depicting how much crime was accounted for by each ward compared to the whole city of Takoma Park. And Ward 5, again, to reiterate, accounted for approximately 5% of the crime in the city of Takoma Park in 2023. And then Ward 1 increased by 11.86% from 2022 to 2023. Ward 2 increased by 54%. Ward 3 decreased by approximately 19%, and Ward 4 increased by 39%. Ward 5 increased by approximately 89%, and Ward 6 increased in crime by about 79% from 2022 to 2023. And then this is a comparison and a visual depicting the types of crimes that we saw in Ward 5 and how those numbers changed from 2022 to 2023. So in Ward 5, there was a 0% change in homicide, a 100% increase in rape, a 25% increase in robbery, a 367% increase in assault, a 25% increase in burglary, a 14% decrease in larceny, and a 150% increase in theft from autos, and a 75% increase in auto thefts, and a total increase of 89% in all crime incidents. And I do want to point out that some of these percentage changes may look quite alarming, such as like a 367% increase, but I do want to point out that the numbers we are working with are very different than some of the numbers in surrounding jurisdictions, the much larger quantities of crime incidents that they are dealing with in those areas. And so because we are dealing with slightly smaller numbers, the percent changes that we see in those number changes are going to just look a little more drastic. But you know, as you can see, it can look a bit alarming, but I want to assure you that it's just we're working with different types of numbers, and so that is the reason for that. And this is an overview of the statistics in Ward 5 for all the crime that we saw throughout the year in 2023. So I will leave this up for a few moments for you all just to take a look and take it in for a bit. But this presentation will be posted online for public viewing after this meeting, so you can take the time to look through it if you would like. And then this is a visual just depicting the percentage of crime that Ward 5 accounted for in all compared to the whole city of Takoma Park. So Ward 5 accounted for 0% of the homicides because we didn't have any last year, and 50% of the rape incidents we had last year, 8% of the robbery incidents, 16% of the assault incidents, 5% of the burglary incidents, 1% of the larceny incidents, 7% of the theft from auto incidents, and 8% of the auto theft incidents. And in total, Ward 5 accounted for 5% of the crime incidents that we saw in 2023 in Takoma Park. And then to go into some of the top 5 repeated locations of crime incidents that we saw in Ward 5 in 2023, or hotspot locations as we call them. The 600 block of Houston Avenue saw 9 incident reports in 2023. The Essex House Apartments at 7777 Maple Avenue had 6 crime incidents. The 8600 block of Flower Avenue had 5 crime incidents. 8300 block of Roanoke Avenue had 4 crime incidents, and the 7600 block of Flower Avenue, Washington Adventist University, had 3 crime incidents. And this is just going into the types of crimes that we saw at these hotspot locations in Ward 5 last year. At the 600 block of Houston Avenue, we had 1 warrant arrest, 2 larcenies, 2 robberies, 1 theft from auto, 1 burglary, and 2 simple assaults. At the 7777 Maple Avenue, we had 1 aggravated assault or rape incident, 1 larceny, 2 motor vehicle thefts, 1 simple assault, and 1 weapons offense. At the 8600 block of Flower Avenue, we had 1 aggravated assault, 1 warrant assault, 2 simple assaults, and 1 threat or intimidation incident. At the 8300 block of Roanoke Avenue, we had 2 theft from auto incidents, 1 theft from auto parts incidents, and 1 simple assault. And at the 7600 block of Flower Avenue, we had 1 theft of auto parts incident, 1 simple assault, and 1 incident involving pornography, obscene material, and trespassing. And here is a map visual depicting just the locations of where some of these crime incidents were occurring in Ward 5. The different colors represent different types of crimes. I do not have the, comparison or, the list of what colors go along with each point on here currently, but I can explain those if anybody has further questions about those, and we have that information, but this is just for location purposes. And then to give a brief overview of the assault incidents that we saw in 2023, there were 88 assault incidents in Takoma Park in 2023. 14 out of the 88 assault incidents occurred in Ward 5. 52 of the 88 assault incidents in all of Takoma Park in 2023 were domestically related, which is about 59%. And 13 out of the 14 assault incidents that occurred in Ward 5, were domestically related, which represents about 93%. And then regarding arrests and property crimes in Takoma Park in 2023, there were more than 300 arrests made in Takoma Park in 2023. There were 922 Part 1 property crimes that occurred in Takoma Park in 2023, and 150 arrests made in relation to property crimes that occurred in Takoma Park. So out of all the property crimes in Takoma Park in 2023, at least 16% were cleared by arrests. In Ward 5, there were 32 Part 1 property crimes that occurred in Takoma Park, or in 2023, and at least 4 arrests were made in relation to property crimes that occurred in Ward 5 in 2023. That's a typo, but at least 13% of property crimes in Ward 5 were cleared by arrests in 2023. And that's that. Thank you.
Information on some of these crime stats, we're more than willing to provide that. With my introduction, I failed to introduce 2 additional people that are here. More importantly, we have our Ward 5 council member, Cara Honzak, is here in the front row, and we have one of our representatives on the Police Chiefs Advisory Board, Neil Chalkarsky, is sitting in the front row as well. Welcome to them, and thank you for coming out. I may not have mentioned it, this is a hybrid meeting, so if you're asking a question in the audience, we have a mic that we're going to pass around to you. We ask that you just ask the question on the mic so that people at home can hear us as well. This meeting is going to be recorded, so if you want to come back later and watch the meeting, or you missed something, or your neighbors, your neighbors couldn't see it, it's going to be on our website, and it will also have the PowerPoint related to it. So, Ron, do we have a mic that we can start out in the audience? So does anyone have any questions in the audience? We can start out, we'll pass the mic around to you if you have a question. Just raise your hand if you do. All right, no questions. Do we have any questions from the online folks? No. All right, we have a question from our council member. Can you give Ms. Honzak the mic, please?
All right, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening, and thank you for being here in our neighborhood. We really appreciate this. It's very loud. I am wondering if you have any data that would suggest that it is possible that we are reporting more crime now than we have been in Ward 5 in the past, or if you've seen any change in that. Do you have any way of being able to get a sense of that?
It's very hard to determine whether or not crime is reported or underreported. I will say that the trend across the city, other than Ward 3, which saw a reduction in crime, the increase in crime in 2023 is consistent with the increase across the city. But we have made a concerted effort to make sure that people are reporting crime, not just in Ward 5, but also across the city. As I said multiple times, we allocate a lot of resources based off of the incidents that are occurring. So if people do not report crime, we do not know they're occurring, and it doesn't go to our statistical data. But I think that a lot of the outreach that we've had in the community, I know we've had at least 2 events previously. We're going to have another community event on June 1st. This event really, I think, gets to some of our residents that are probably more prone to not report crime, and that's some of our undocumented folks that are some of our folks that are not native to the United States, where some of the police in their countries may have not been as open and professional as we are. So we continue to do that. So I will make that plug again. Please, if you're a victim of a crime, please report it. We are a sanctuary city. We do not care about your immigration status. We are there to help you. But to answer your question, I don't know that we can necessarily say that the increase in crime was related to more people reporting because of the increase across the city.
No, that's actually helpful to compare it across the city. That's probably the best indicator we have. And so a second quick question is, would you mind going back to the map, Ms. Rowe?
Yes, I can try. One moment.
And if you can.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
Can you just clarify, I can see Totally Fraser Park on your map in terms of the words, but it's a little bit hard to read. Am I correct to interpret 1, 2, 3, at least 4 or 5 of those little blips are right around Totally Fraser? Is that?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that correct?
Oh.
Would you be able to share with us?
Sorry, the computer
Without
just
looking
died.
at it?
Yes. So those incidents consisted of, it looked like a few assaults, 1 robbery, and then several shots fired reports. So.
Okay. I mean, I personally right now, I think I'm only aware of the gunshots that were fired around that area, but as for anyone who doesn't know, or for those who have been following over the last year, we definitely, you all have done some good work to try to follow up on gunshot incidents that we've had around that area over the last year and a half. I wondered if you might be able to give us a little update on kind of anything you're able to say publicly. So that everybody knows, I have not pre-vetted these questions, so my apologies, Chief, but I know these are things that are on people's minds. Thank you.
Yeah, as you said earlier, we obviously aggressively investigated those particular incidents. I do not believe we have any arrests made, or I'm looking at investigative commander Lieutenant Butler, but so we, like I say, those type of incidents are very disconcerting to the neighborhood. Obviously, one of them was in the middle of the day. So if you want to bring your young child to a community park, that's the last thing you want to see happen. We've been fortunate, knock on wood, that we have not had any incidents recently, and that's due to a very heavy presence of our uniform presence. For the long time in 2023, we had a very targeted overtime uniform detail as well as a plainclothes detail in that area, specifically addressing those type of crimes. So we think that had a lot to do with the reduction in that particular area, but that continues to be a hotspot area for us and is checked regularly. We want that to be an area where Ward 5, the community can come and bring their children to enjoy the recreational outlets and not have to worry about gunshots or what have you. So we're aware of it, but like I say, it's very hard during some of these incidents to actually make an arrest. We believe that one of the incidents was attached to or tied to one of the area apartment buildings, but other than that, we don't really have any additional information at this point. I think you may have turned it off. Ron, can you help her?
Am I correct to understand you to say you said it was still a hot spot? So does that mean you're still seeing? Does that mean you're checking it regularly, or are you still seeing incidents happening there around there at greater frequency than in other parts of the neighborhood?
So the definition of a hotspot is an area for us that we've experienced problems. So that doesn't mean that it currently has problems. It's just an area that when I say hotspots, officers, as they work their beat, they're assigned a particular beat, will check that frequently. They know that we've had previous problems or current problems there. And we have those throughout the city. It's not just in that particular area.
Okay. And so have we seen crime around that area change at all in 2024 yet?
We have our 2024 stats, but we can get back to you offline on specifics about specific locations. Yeah, when you're asking about specific locations, we'd have to get back to you on the specific locations.
Anybody else want?
We have one behind you. Behind you.
Thanks, I appreciate this opportunity for you guys to present this information. I live near Fraser Park.
I'm sorry, can you just hold on? We just got to make sure the mic is on so people can hear us, and I apologize for that. I'm not sure why it keeps on going off, but sorry about that. If you could just repeat.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So I just want to say I appreciate this opportunity for you guys to share the information with us, but also answer any questions. I live near
It's the way you're holding it. So you're touching the button. That's what's happening.
Okay. That should not be so easy.
Not a good design.
No, but I definitely been one who has heard and reported some not listening to this.
Can we get City TV? Do we have another mic that we can try that? Maybe it's this mic.
I think the battery's just running low. It's the equipment.
I'm not sure if we can, to expedite things, we can turn the mic here. If you want to come up, you can use this mic. You want to, if it makes it easy on you. We don't want to put you on the spot there. Come in the spotlight.
All the cameras anyway.
You can use this
Now
one as
where?
well. You can hold that one as well if you'd like to.
I just wanted to say, so I live near Fraser Park, and I know I've been in contact with you, I'm Julie, and have heard and reported several of the gunshots, and there were gunshots heard. I didn't report these because it sounded distant. It was not in front of my apartment this time, near, like on Saturday, because I was looking for the Aurora Borealis, but more gunshots, it sounded like more like from Sligo Creek Parkway.
I believe we responded to an incident on the Sligo Creek Parkway over the weekend. I believe so.
Yeah. So I appreciate your questions following up on just general gunshots and kind of to the stats, curious if when you report assaults are gunshots or it said simple assaults in one place and it said assaults, or how are gunshots heard, reported in those stats is first general question.
So that's a very good question. Those are not necessarily in the Part 1 stats, but when Bisha can touch on where those are recorded.
Yeah, so we do keep track of them, and they're not included in Part 1 statistics, but we do keep track of them very, very consistently. And then on the map that I showed you, it does include the shots fired incidents and all included weapons offense incidents. But they're not included in Part 1 crimes, but we do keep track of them from month-to-month basis, and we compare them from years past, et cetera. And there's not been any significant change. I know there hasn't been much of a present issue to my knowledge, but also to answer your question from earlier, how the statistics have compared since 2024 and where those hospital locations are. I can't have that information on hand or on the top of my head, but they stay much the same as the previous year, pretty much the same locations. The 8300 block Roanoke Avenue, 8600 block Flower Avenue, 600 block Houston Avenue, 7600 block Flower Avenue, and the only difference is the 7600 block Carroll Avenue is also been added as a hospital location in at least the first quarter of 2024.
That's helpful. Definitely would be curious to see a breakout. I know, like you were saying, the numbers are kind of small, so any increases definitely give this idea of a giant increase, but the increase, you know, even if it's 1 to 2 or 2 to 4, like the increase exponential is interesting to watch and monitor. So seeing the breakout or knowing where shots fired or the types of assaults and things is just good to know.
Do you register to our daily updates on crime?
I do.
Because those are very helpful as well, because they'll break it down by ward. So every week you can see the specific incidents and where they occurred.
I love those reports, actually.
So we'll continue to do that. But I can hear, we can pass on information to Councilmember Honzak specifically about Totally Fraser and what is occurring there, what occurred thus far in 2024, and kind of give you some background on the efforts that we've made. But I will say, and I encourage this again, if you hear gunshots, even if they do not appear to be close to where you are, please call us, because it's
Oh, even for distant ones?
even if you hear distant.
Okay.
If you hear gunshots.
Definitely called when it was in front of my apartment and in Totley Park, but the distant one I did not call, but I can do that.
It's helpful for us.
You'll get to know me, I guess.
Any other questions?
Just one other, in general, about the February van fire that was near my apartment as well. I know I followed up with the council member and appreciated her attention, but I was a little concerned with the initial report being no foul play or no suspicious activity reported when I don't know about you, but it is not every day that vans just spontaneously combust, so I would feel like automatically it would be suspicious. And learning that then, because it was deemed not suspicious, there weren't investigators on scene. I watched as it was towed away. There were no, like, when the assault or shootout happened in front of my place, there were officers for hours and little point markers to catch all the evidence and look, but the van fire, there was none of that, and it wasn't until a few days later when obviously the evidence was no longer there. So just kind of, if you could share kind of how, if you're, you know, how much you know about it, but then how those general processes work and what to expect from those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think we already responded, I think, to Councilmember Honzak about that specific incident. That particular incident was investigated by the fire marshal's office here in Montgomery County. If there's an arson incident, we turn it over to them. We don't investigate it. So I have to circle back on the specifics of what the initiation of the call was. We are normally the main reporting agency. We'll go out and ascertain if it's suspicious. I don't know the specifics about that particular incident, but normally if there's any inkling that it's suspicious, we will call, you know, the fire marshal's office out to investigate. And I know that they followed up, and I don't know enough about the particulars, but I'd be very happy to circle back. And I know that we answered some questions for Councilmember Honzak specific to that incident, but I just don't recall the specifics at this point.
I can tell you everything.
Okay.
I called and recorded engaged footage and that kind of stuff, so.
Can we just remember, if we have a mic, if we can, just because people can't hear you.
I don't need to do that here, but I definitely was one to call and have follow-up and provided footage, and it was after I provided footage. I mean, I initially said I have a camera, but I didn't have time to check because I was watching everything, and I was not followed up with on that. And then went and took time and found footage and supplied it, and only after that was the fire marshal called.
Yeah, I know that we responded in depth previously, and I'd be more than happy to connect you with our investigative services commander, Lieutenant Butler, who can fill you in a little bit more. But I knew that was a few months ago, so I just don't recall the specifics. So offline, we can connect you with Lieutenant Butler to discuss that further.
And also to further answer your question about some of those hotspot locations and the shots fired incidents, currently in the first quarter of 2024, none of the hotspot locations in Ward 5 had any shots fired or weapons offense incidents. So far in the first quarter of 2024, and as for last year in all of 2023, there was one weapons offense, which does include a shots fired incident. But to my knowledge, or if I remember correctly, that particular incident wasn't a shots fired incident. It involved someone with an actual weapon who was apprehended. So, just wanted to make sure you had that information.
Do we have anyone else in the audience that has any particular questions?
I'll ask
Go ahead.
another
Let me
one.
just circle back and make sure that we have some online, so we'll circle back to that and then come back to you.
Oh, sorry. The first one is, what factors contribute to the increase of crime?
I mean, there are many factors, and I've said this multiple times, that cause the increase in crime. This is not unique to the city of Takoma Park. Crime in the region is up, violent crime is up. But until we start looking at the root causes of what causes crime, what causes people to commit crime, we're going to have a continual cycle. Until we address poverty, until we address the educational issues, until we address the nutrition issues, all of these things are critical. So if you're a young 12-year-old and you live with 4 other siblings, and you live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and you wake up and your mom is working one of her 3rd jobs, and you don't have food, what are you going to do? You're going to go out and commit crime. Or you don't have a job, so you don't have any. So I'm a huge proponent of taking and addressing these root causes. We as the police department are we are the enforcement agents of society to some degree. But we can't change what happens until society understands and takes a look at those root causes. One of the best programs for those of you who have been in this region for some time was Marion Barry, who used to be the mayor of the District of Columbia. Say what you want about him, but one of the best things he did was that summer youth job program. And it gave youth money, something to do, self-worth, and crime was reduced as a result of that. So the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force, if those of you who are not familiar, there was a task force that was initiated in the city in 2022, I believe, 2021, 2022. And one of the recommendations was to look at those root causes, to develop partnerships with some of our businesses here in the city of Takoma Park, to employ some of our youth, and to do some other things. You know, I'm a huge proponent also of early childhood education. You know, most children develop the most, the brains develop the most from 0 to 3 years old. So we play our part in trying to address crime as it occurs, but until we as a society address the root causes, they're going to continue to occur. But I will say we've seen a big increase, at least in crimes of opportunity related to fentanyl. A lot of our shopliftings, a lot of our thefts are related to fentanyl, especially over at the Walgreens, which is one of our largest, probably has more, Misha probably could tell me the numbers there are just astronomical. And the percentage of crime that just comes out of that one establishment is astronomical. But it's driven by fentanyl addiction.
Yes. Sorry, I don't think Zoom heard you for the most part. I think there was an issue with the microphone. But to further touch on what the chief said, particularly about Walgreens, but the vast majority of the cause of the increase in crime we've seen recently and in the past year has been largely attributed to shopliftings and theft from autos pretty much across the board. And Walgreens specifically a huge contributor to that. And I do have the statistics for that if you want, but.
John, are you getting the mic now? Is it in and out for Zoom, or it's, if we can just gauge Zoom people if they're hearing me, I'll switch over to the mic beside me if I, can everyone hear me? No, I'm talking about the people on Zoom. Is there anyone that we can confirm that, because I think we said somebody at Zoom couldn't hear us.
They said it's good now.
It's good now,
Yeah.
okay. Any more questions on Zoom? Okay, go ahead with them. There are many different cases. Obviously, we investigate any time we have a shots fired call. We respond out if shell casings are found. We obviously bring out investigators and look into it and so on and so forth. Regarding specific cases in Ward 5, we'd have to circle back. Once again, we have our investigative services commander, Lieutenant Butler here. I'm not aware of any specific cases that we've been able to close because of the result of finding shell casings or resulting investigation. Yeah, if you have another one on Zoom.
Job opportunities for youth, what specific steps have been taken towards Takoma Park having a summer jobs program? Have you identified any businesses that have signed up for hiring?
That's a really good question that involves obviously more than the police department. We have one of our council members here. It is a highly involved to try to get people involved. We have, from a police department's perspective, we can't make that happen. It involves other entities within the city, but it's something that is, like I say, it was a recommendation made by the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force. I think it's really important. I think the powers that be in the city are committed to doing that, but I don't know where we are, to be honest with you, in that transition. I think it's very hard to create a program. But I think it's doable here in the city of Takoma Park. I think we have enough businesses to be able to make that connection. But it's something that one of the if there's any recommendation on those 51 that I think is really important, that's one of them. So I'd like to see other entities, not trying to throw anybody else under the bus, but I'd like to see that happen.
Since I'm here, and that goes well beyond policing, and into also budgeting, to my knowledge, there haven't been any initiatives put forth over the last year from city staff or from the council to specifically address that issue, but I think it's an extremely important issue, and there has been a lot of discussion about our youth and what we're going to do to support our youth better. Particularly, I think it was I don't remember if the chief might know better than me, but I don't remember in which month it was announced that the city was not going to be able to do its traditional youth hiring teen program this summer, in part because of our facilities, I believe, not having adequate capacity to absorb that given the library construction and whatnot. So I am hopeful that next year we can bring that back, but I think it's a fantastic idea to work with our private businesses on setting something up. I don't know under what wheelhouse that fits. But if there's a champion for that within the city who wants to work with me as a council person, I'd love to explore that and brainstorm that with you. So happy to do that. And no, I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
I will say this, having grown up here in the city of Takoma Park, I can tell you there is an extreme demand here in the city. A lot of us here in the city are very affluent, but there are a lot of youngsters in this community that are not. That could really benefit from a program like this. Could really benefit from some early morning daycare and so on and so forth. There's a multitude of things that I think we need to discuss. As I touched on earlier about the holistic approach, but this is one, and as Councilmember Honzak mentioned, we're kind of space-strapped now because of the library construction that is impacting the municipal building as well, and I think that had something to do with at least our program to employ youth over the summer, but it's something that definitely, I know that our recreation director, Greg Clark, is championing it, so I know there are people within the city government that are championing that, so. Do you have any more online?
Yes.
Go ahead.
One more. Are Takoma Park kids being arrested?
Yes, but the large, Misha can talk specifically about the number of arrests and where people come from. The majority of people that are arrested are not Takoma Park residents. They live outside the city of Takoma Park. The majority of our arrests are made of adults, not juveniles. But I don't know if Misha has the number or percentage of arrests made of adults and related to juveniles, and if she can specifically give you the number for the number that are from Takoma Park. If not, we can actually absolutely acquire that. Misha?
Yeah, so I definitely have those numbers. I don't have them particularly with me right now, but to give you a rough estimate, the vast majority of the people being arrested are from outside of Takoma Park. Or at least, their last known address is from outside Takoma Park. And as far as juveniles and adults go, I don't think juveniles represented the majority of the total amount of arrests in 2023, but it was a significant increase compared to the amount of juvenile arrests that we've had in past years, if that answers your question. So, but I do have the numbers available, just not with me right now.
And I do want to touch on one thing, because with someone, when I said that before, that a lot of the people that we arrest are from outside of the city of Takoma Park, and they said, well, why are we doing programs to address our kids? Because just because our kids aren't the ones committing crime here in the city of Takoma Park doesn't mean that they're not committing crime in downtown Silver Spring. We need to do our part. So we need to take care of our kids, and hopefully Montgomery County takes care of theirs, DC takes care of theirs. So just because our kids aren't committing crime here does not mean that we need to ignore them and not give them the services that they need. So, Councilmember?
I just wanted to share that from the school's perspective, it is my understanding, and I'm looking at others who might be very knowledgeable from the PTA perspective too, that there's a lot of delinquency at schools with kids not showing up at schools, particularly at the middle school and high school level, and it's a serious problem right now. It would be really interesting and useful, I think, for us to get a sense of how significant you're seeing that come out already in the crime data here, that just to give us a small taste, even if, like you said, our juveniles might be going elsewhere. But I walk around also during the day, and I have 3 kids, but I've seen a lot more young people walking around during the day than normal in the last year. So something, we all know the data says that it's changing, and that's of concern.
We can definitely provide that.
Thanks.
Do you have more?
Okay, if I may, I've got more questions because I think I've heard from people if they're being shy. So I also wondered, I actually did not push out information on purpose. I'll just let people know for full disclosure about the incidents that happened along Flower Avenue with some peeping toms, let's say, and I'm opening that dialogue now because we have you here to respond to that. For anyone who wasn't aware and who doesn't receive reports from the police, there were a few incidents of peeping toms in our neighborhood that, as a mother of teenage girls in particular, I felt very nervous about because we weren't able to get our police community meeting right away, I didn't want to push those out and have people being terrified. So could you please speak to that a little bit? Where are we at? How many incidents have we had? Where were they-ish? And what's your advice for people?
Absolutely. I may turn it over to Captain Evans for specifics, but there were a few incidents a few months ago where we had an individual looking into the windows with some young girls on Flower Avenue. We had another incident where a young lady was followed. We haven't had, knock on wood, any recent incidents, but obviously our advice is to anyone is to report any suspicious activity. No one should be in your backyard. Don't wait to call us. If you see somebody in your backyard, getting on a ladder or something that's suspicious, call us. Please err on the side of letting us know. In a lot of these cases, people did that, and that's really important, and we were able to respond and get timely information. It is obviously very disconcerting to have situations where this happens, and I don't know if the captain wants to touch on any of the specifics, but I know that all of them were reported by our agency, and obviously we actually investigated them, but we don't think that, and the captain can touch on this, that they were related, at least the ones that beat Tom and the other suspicious individuals.
Yes, this is to piggyback on what he was saying. There's several listservs that are out, and one of our issues is we don't get everything reported directly to us, but Ms. Plevy does an excellent job of gathering information and giving it to us. So what we did was address the concern by putting more officers in the area, and we came upon an individual that seemed like he might have fit a description, but he was just a homeless individual living out of his car. We had no nexus with the individual, with the report that came in that was somebody stalking or following them. We haven't put those things together, but what we do is address the issue as soon as we get the information. And sometimes that can be a problem, us not getting the information. But Ms. Plevy, when is getting this information on several listservs, she sends that information to us and we act on it. So we encourage everybody to call in. We have a number, 301-270-1100, so we could directly address those problems. So what we have done is put extra resources there. We're a data-driven organization, so when we have concerns that are expressed to us, we act on them as soon as possible, but we haven't put anything down unless the commander of investigation has any more information toward that matter. At this point in time, we're just addressing it and flooding that area with more officers and frequency.
And I just want to address one thing, and it's listservs. A lot of times, I suggest you get your information from the police department, not listservs. A lot of times, people are well-intended in what they put out, but it's not accurate information. On one of these incidents, we had to go back and correct a lot of misinformation. So I highly, highly suggest that you get the information from the police department. If there is specific information about a specific incident, please contact us so we can do the investigative steps to make sure that we're investigating it properly. We've had some situations where people have gone back and forth on listservs, which information is very important to our investigators, and we don't get it because they want to tell their 50 people on their listserv. So listservs are fantastic, but for crime data, please refer to the police department, and for crime information, please provide it to the police department. Do we have any other questions before we go back to Councilmember Honzak? Anybody in the audience? Oh, yes, ma'am. Can we get your mic before we? We never have problems with these mics. I don't know what it is with this. Maybe it's the room.
I don't know. I have too much to say often. I just wanted to touch on the appreciation again for the call anytime and the dispatcher, and they'll do all that. I just wanted to share a little bit of a couple of my experiences when I do call. There are, like for some of the definite things where I witnessed something or it was closer, and I would get a response that would say, oh yeah, we know about that. You're like the third person. And I'd say, yeah, but and then they say, okay, we got it. It's on this block. And I say, yeah. And they're like, okay. And then they didn't want any more information. And I would watch the scenario outside my window, and then to not interrupt what's going on, the investigation or whatever, and make sure I'm safe or whatever. And then at the end, this was an incident of like it's sunrise and I needed to go. So I walked out and the police officers were still there. So they asked if I saw anything, and then I gave the extra information like, oh, we have a witness or something, and can you do a statement? And I'm like, yes, and I made sure to write down. I tried to do this in my initial call. So my general awareness is I know all of these jobs are hard and they get a lot of calls, and I do want to be encouraged to call anytime, especially for those further gunshots or whatever. But I want to bring it up for general awareness of, you know, making sure that they do take those full statements on the phone, because even if it's the 5th call or the 10th call, that there was valuable information I tried to share and wasn't able to at the time.
I appreciate that feedback. There are 2 ways that we receive calls, and through our 270-1100 number, which is our dispatcher, who will take that call directly, and 911. May I ask, did you call 911 or did you get the Takoma Park dispatcher? Because if you call 911, you're going to get the Montgomery County Police dispatcher, who then transfers the information to us. It's not going to be our dispatcher, and you may get different services. If you're contacting 270-1100, you're getting our dispatcher. So I encourage people that are calling about incidents in the city to call the 301-270-1100 number, because you're getting our dispatcher. So I apologize if it was our dispatcher. Just to understand, sometimes our dispatchers, it's just one person in the room. So they're trying to dispatch the officers, they're trying to take the call, and they're also trying to mediate entering it into the computer. A lot of times, most of the times we have two people in there, but sometimes it's just one person. But normally, if you have information that's relevant, whether or not you're calling 911 and getting Montgomery County, or you're calling us, I would just encourage them, please, I have important information, please listen to me. And if they don't, then you can follow up with us. If it's our dispatchers, if it's Montgomery County, we can connect you with who you can address that with. But like I say, if it's one of our dispatchers, normally they're very receptive in getting information. The good thing about our dispatchers is they know the city much better than Montgomery County dispatchers, and you don't have that transfer. So instead of it going directly from that dispatcher to an officer, it has to be transferred from Montgomery County to us, and that's the way police dispatch is done across the county. It's not unique to us. So I don't know do you recall who you contacted?
Yeah, I appreciate learning the difference and knowing that is the situation. And I also largely have always had good experiences in contacting you and your team. I do think that one was more of an emergency situation, so I probably did call 911 in that particular instance. So good to know, for sure.
All right. Anyone else in the room? Councilmember Honzak, do you have any?
We have more.
You're fine. It's your constituents' questions, so if anyone's
We have
shy,
one on
then
Zoom, too.
and we can go to Zoom.
Just have one more on Zoom
Go
right
ahead.
now. Well, actually, 2, I'm sorry.
2 more.
Since there's valuable information on listservs, is it something a council member could monitor for their ward and forward it to you, or would that be inappropriate?
If we see something, what I'm talking about with a listserv is if someone is posting on a listserv about something that's relevant to a crime that occurred, they should be notifying us, not posting on a listserv. I do not want to impose, I don't think it would be appropriate for a council member to have to monitor a listserv, because a lot of these things are real time. Hey, I was just walking back from the grocery store and I saw a suspicious van on Flower Avenue, and somebody posts that on the listserv. That is most appropriately to contact the police and tell us, because, no offense, Ms. Honzak has 3 kids herself. I don't think she's going to be sitting by and monitoring a listserv. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying if you have real-time crime information, contact our dispatch center. Don't post it on a listserv. And you may think it's, oh, well, it's just it's a little suspicious. And then later on, we find out that truck was involved in a theft or indecent exposure or something like that. Listserv have valuable purposes. A lot of Kathy Plevy's information goes out via listservs. A lot of critical information is put out. But if you're seeing something that doesn't come from the police department about an incident, I would encourage you, as I said earlier, to refer to official police department information, because that's going to be the accurate information. And if you have real-time situations, contact the police department. Don't post it on the listserv.
And I do try to monitor wherever I see. I do not, you're right, I'm not on listservs all the time, but I try to check in periodically and see what I see, and if I ever see anything that I think would benefit from being reported to the police, I try to make sure that they're aware of it, and sometimes they deal with it directly, and sometimes I try to reach out directly to a constituent.
Also, if you don't feel like getting emails from me every day. I'm not going to say it hurts my feelings, but it does. But we do put the weekly ones on our webpage too, so if you don't want to get them every single day, you can go there and just check out the week every Friday, like around 4. It goes out pretty much every Friday at 4 for the whole, Friday to Friday. So you can see like how many larcenies, how many residential burglaries. So if you don't want to get them every day, you can also check them there.
And they're also, you can go back, so did something happen in December of 2023? You can go back and look and say, oh yeah, well that did happen. That's a similar van that I saw on Houston last week that was involved in an incident in December of 2023 and involved in an incident in March. So do we have one more online before we transition back? Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to say thank you for one thing. I want folks to know, people were saying, why so many public safety meetings, Cara? And I want people to know why you've stepped up and why I've asked for some of that stepping up. And maybe you can speak to what your plans are in the future. I think people might like to hear that. But one big reason is that not so much because there were some crime data that showed some increases right here locally, but that we had folks, especially in the northern part of the city, who repeatedly told me that they had not spoken to the police ever, and yet they were scared to go out, many of them working nighttime hours, early morning hours, and many of them were Spanish speakers. I had similar experiences, but not in Spanish, but in Essex House, where people were telling me all sorts of things, none of which had been reported to the police. And so I've tried to make a big effort to just encourage people one-on-one, encourage them, even hand-holding them all the way to get to the police to report. And it's one of the reasons I've said, hey, police, could you come out to the people, to the places where they are, and meet us there, even if it's just a few people. They will tell their friends, and they will hopefully feel more comfortable. And so I want to tell everybody what you've done. You showed up for the Business League meeting at Long Branch, which is a key part of our neighborhood. When we did the walk and talk with the mayor, we saw there were businesses who had never spoken to our city manager or mayor, and had some people who were drinking outside and left their beer bottles right outside the businesses, and they weren't even part of the Business League. But at least they showed up there and heard. I think it was a good linkage to make, and I challenge you. I hope that you'll be able to find the capacity to do that again, and they'll reach out to you. You also came to Silver Spring International Middle School, which is our home middle school, and spoke to our Spanish-speaking parents at the Cafecito, which is a regular event that also happens at Rolling Terrace Elementary School. And I would be very pleased to see you maybe making those connections on an annual basis with our 2 schools for the Cafecitos. I think that the schools have made a big effort, and a successful one, to figure out how to link with their Spanish-speaking parents, and that's the best model I think they've come up with. I think they get more Spanish-speaking parents there than they get at their PTA meetings by and large. And so if you're able to figure that into your schedule in the coming years, I want to encourage that and thank you for doing that. And then finally, you have, I think, agreed to a barbecue up in the northern part of the city in June, and it will be in English and in Spanish once again. And I just want to say thank you. Even if we don't have a great showing, we did get some awesome video footage at Gilbert Highlands, where some of our community liaisons, while they were, we came up with a list of questions to ask people about how they felt about public safety issues, and people were willing to be interviewed, and we sent it to the chief, and to try to just get people warmed up to the idea that they could be comfortable sitting with our police. So I want to say thank you. And I have also personally had a couple of encounters with your department this year in which I want to salute your police force for the individual attention. They did not know who I was, and it was very delicate matters that I had to deal with, and I thought your police force just did an amazing job. So thank you, and I really mean that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If I can just touch on the importance of having these type of meetings that are ward-wide meetings, where we're giving statistics on the ward and the city, but also the importance of having those smaller meetings, whether or not we had a meeting at the Essex House last week in their lobby. That's critically important. We've had meetings in people's living rooms where we've had 3, 4, 15 people. We had the meeting at the middle school. Those things are really important because certain audiences you need to catch where they're comfortable. Like some of the Essex House people, that's in Ward 5, but I don't think there's anyone from Essex House here. Now, granted, we had a meeting there last week that touched on a lot of their concerns. So I just want to say to anyone, whether or not you're Ward 5 or whether or not you're in any ward in the city, if you have some concerns and you'd like us to come out, we will come out. We will come out and we'll meet. We'll talk specifically about your issues. That's one of the unique things that you have with having a police department in the city of Takoma Park. We're very service-oriented, and we are very willing to come out to people's environment. And I think that, like I say, there's certain people in our community that are just very, very scared of the police. They're very apprehensive to call the police. So the more we can make people feel comfortable in interacting with us, that's one good thing about having a diverse police department. We also have, people speak 7 different languages in our police department. We have multiple officers that are fluent in Spanish. We have officers and staff that are fluent in Amharic. That's just very important in being able to take a call for service. And if you're able to, and you're not familiar, if English is not your first language, being able to get that service provided in your language. So, I think that's really important. I appreciate that as a police department. I say kudos every day to our staff. We have very, very quality people here. We've hired over 70% of our police department in the last 6 years, and we have quality people, not only getting promoted up the ranks, but also coming in the door, and I think that's really important. We can sit up here as commanders and do what we want to do, but we're not the ones that are going to be coming at your house at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be one of them, or we're not going to, one of the commanders that has to direct staff. So it's quality staff, I think, all the way down, and I think that's really important. But I appreciate the acknowledgement, and it goes to the rank and file officers. I just do want to say one thing, and I didn't mention. Yesterday was Police Memorial Week, or Police Memorial Day. This is Police Memorial Week. This week, you'll notice I have a black band on my badge. We're honoring all of the officers that have lost their lives in the line of duty. So I just wanted to recognize that. Our department is celebrating that and recognizing that this week. So, Neil, you have the mic in your hand. Do you have a question? You're just holding the mic there.
I have something.
I think Kathy has one. Go ahead.
Actually, I have 2 things. One's for me and kind of Ms. Honzak. Speaking of reaching demographics in Ward 5, I am currently putting together an all Spanish-speaking community police academy so that we can pick out the topics, because I think that we're missing a lot of that demographic, and I don't want them to be afraid to call us, and I want them to understand what we're doing and that we are a sanctuary city, and that we're there. We have victim witness coordinators speak Spanish, and just be able to speak, teach the whole thing in Spanish. So I am working on that. I'll probably ask you to push it out to your constituents for me. So I am working on that, just so you know that's happening. The second thing is, someone wanted to know if Ron could talk about the opioid fentanyl training that's coming up. So that
Absolutely,
it's out
Ron.
there.
You normally are passing the mic around. You got the mic with you? They talk about the opioid awareness initiative that's coming out here shortly.
Yeah, next Thursday, May 23rd, from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m., I'll be giving an opioid awareness naloxone training. It'll be about a 1-hour class going over some of the statistics of why it's done, what are opioids, and how naloxone works, and the symptoms and signs of an overdose. There's still seats open. You can email me at ron.h@tacomaparkmd.gov, and I will get you into the class. At the end of the class, you'll be getting 2 nasal dispensers of naloxone, some gloves, and some instructions.
I cannot stress enough, if anyone in the community has a member of their family, friends, neighbor who may be remotely addicted to any type of fentanyl or anything else, any other narcotic prescription medication, you need to have Narcan. I mean, it is a critical thing to have. So I encourage anyone to come out. We're going to try to make more of those doses available. I just did want to circle back on one thing that I didn't mention, and that's our new LGBTQ plus coordinator. We recently designated a liaison. Corporal Cindy Torres is our liaison. We had a significant incident in our old town that really shook the fabric of our community, where we had a bomb threat at one of our drag queen events. And it was a very, very scary event, handled really well by our staff. But it's not something we're familiar with in the city of Takoma Park. And we work very closely with the management of the Motorcat and other organizations, because people were scared. People were legitimately scared. We felt it was very important to have a liaison within the police department for our LGBTQ plus community to come to when they were having events or concerns. And we worked very closely with the Motorcat. They had several other drag queen incidents without incident, and that's what we want to happen. We do not remotely want Takoma Park to be the subject of hate of any kind. And just for the public, that was an outside agitator. It wasn't anyone from local to here. It was somebody that sent it anonymously, and it wasn't a local person. But it really, really did kind of take away from what Takoma Park means. So I just wanted to mention that. For those of you who did not know, we have that coordinator. We can provide more information on that. Any more online? Ms. Honzak, do you have anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Well, I'd like to open by offering my appreciation to Councilmember Honzak for inviting the neighboring communities to attend. I'm not a Ward 5 resident. I live across the creek in Sligo Park Hills. I'm the vice president of the Sligo Park Hills Community Association, and I'll say that 10% of our residents live in Ward 4 along Mississippi Avenue. Having said that, this spring, a council member and our association have formally agreed to collaborate on advocacy for Sligo Creek Park and the creek itself and the residents on both sides of the creek who use the recreational facilities there. So from that perspective, can you speak to any issues about crime incidents that occur in the park itself? Where does the Takoma Park jurisdiction end? Does it end at the creek or the parkway? And any advice you would have about staying safe while using the park, in particular in the winter when the days are short and nights are long. So thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. Interesting enough, I have just a little bit of background with the park police. So there's a gentleman to my right. We worked there for many years before we came here. So, we have concurrent jurisdiction here in Takoma Park with the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission and their park police. But specifically, they are the primary reporting agency along Sligo Creek Parkway and several MNC PPC parks here in the city. Usually at meetings like this, we would be able to have a representative from Park Police to be able to talk specifically about crime in that particular area. Traditionally, I worked for Park Police for 24 years, and traditionally that was not a high crime area. The Sligo Creek area from, say, Piney Branch down to New Hampshire Avenue. I assume that's the same way, but that being said, I live my backyard backs up to the Rock Creek Stream Valley in a trail. I highly recommend that if you're out jogging, obviously that you have a partner, especially if it's early morning or late at night, those type of things. Let somebody know where you're going. But in general, that's a very, very safe area. I'm not aware of any specific incident, but we'd be more than happy to just circle back with Councilmember Honzak on any crime information specifically. Because I know the main thing we've experienced, I think, along that section is the shots fired calls. I know there have been quite a few along that section, and sometimes they echo all the way up to maybe where you are. They could have been coming all the way up from the parkway. But in general, I think that the park police are a phenomenal agency. They actively patrol. We work in concert with them. We have an MOU with them. Like I say, that gives us concurrent jurisdiction. So if an incident occurred, for example, on Sligo Creek Parkway, both agencies would respond. If we were there first, we would handle it until the park police got there. In the same way, if the park police were coming down and assisted us here in the city, we'd love to participate in whatever function you're having, as far as whether it's a safety thing, whether it's to clean up the creek, whatever it may be. We'd be happy to partner with you. And I don't know if you know, we have a couple Ward 4 representatives on the Chiefs Advisory Board. Adam Landsman is one of them. So if you want to coordinate with him, I'm sure he's very active in that particular area. So.
And it's also good to have their direct number as well. just like we are asking you to call us directly if you can. If it's not an emergency, you don't have to call 911. Their direct number is 301-949-3010. So you might get a quicker response if you call them directly opposed to calling 911.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to, for the outreach that Kathy Plevy was mentioning, or even how, these things, I wanted to echo the council members excited, for more of these things to happen, and I appreciate this, and it's maybe a small number because it is hard to get the word out as the first one. So I just wanted to share, like I learned of it on Facebook, but maybe curious if there's a poll of learn where the word is getting out or how to share where else to find it, right? That kind of thing. So I would like to know where else to see these kinds of things, and just for your information where I found it. So if you know what else you've looked at and what did or didn't work, that you could work to expand that to get more of an audience. And then just, this is kind of sounds off the wall, but general curiosity. I was thinking of this because my mother is a nurse, and that's a very service-oriented job like you guys have, where your specialty is out in the field, that kind of stuff. But as you mentioned, it's a very data-driven or report-driven kind of job. So once you're out there doing all of this and you're getting all these calls and you're doing the reports, just kind of curious. At least knowing, again, from my mom's experience of reporting, she would often be late home because she did all the stuff, all the extra work for the patients, for her constituents, right? And then work late hours to try and do the due diligence and to capture the reporting. And, she's great. A lot of people are great. I'm sure a lot of people on your team, everybody's great. But even in my office job, those are the worst things. Nobody likes to do the reporting. There are a select few brilliant Excel folks who just, that's what they love to do, but everybody else, like, that's on top of their job. You get tired of doing it. So just kind of curious in general, how does the office handle keeping on top of maybe even reporting fatigue, or sometimes if you want to say, oh, well, I don't think this is a big job or big deal, like, no suspicious activity found, or those kinds of things. Like, how do you actively support or engage or empower your officers to do all of the accurate reporting you need and follow-up when that's a heavier burden on top of, maybe where their energy is better suited for them personally, right? So it's a juggle to do all the things. So just curious about that.
We have strict reporting requirements. If you go to a certain call, you have to write a report. So we have strict reporting requirements, and the officers adhere to it. It's obviously the job is very stressful, and the mental health of our officers is paramount, and we're always aware of that. But like I say, if an officer goes out to a certain call, they're required to write a report. It just is the way it is. It's not. There's no question about it. There's automatic reporting requirements, and they have to do that. Our officers are very, very good at documenting incidents and following up on incidents. And I think for significant incidents, it's not just the reporting, but it's also the follow-up. And it's really, really critical that our first-line officers get critical information. I think you spoke earlier about the missing information on the arson, and that's critical information that normally we don't miss. So I think it's a twofold combination that the officers aren't not reporting something or not taking a report for something because they have fatigue or don't want to do it. They're required to, and if they do need to be held over, we have a very robust collective bargaining agreement that allows them to get compensated for any hours that they spend over. We have 12-hour shifts, and I'm not aware of many officers, and I don't want to speak, we have one in the corner there that many times that they're held over for hours writing reports, but I can assure you Officer Strogan over in the corner is not going to not properly document any incident that requires it as such, and is going to do everything he can to get all the information needed to ensure that if it requires a follow-up from the detectives, that every piece of information that's needed is passed on to them. And I think our detectives can attest to the fact that our patrol officers are doing that really well.
Yeah, and to also further answer your question, I'm on officers like 24/7 about making sure that every report that's needed to be reported is reported, and that is reported correctly. You can probably speak to any officer in the Takoma Park Police Department, and they can attest that they have worked with me, or I have reached out to them to be like, hello, fix this thing, or make sure everything is accounted for and everything is correct and completely accurate. Like even the most annoying things, like little typos, or that really don't impact anything. But yes, I'm on that.
And I think that's important because you also, for classification, if something may be misclassified, you can catch it as a crime analyst and make sure that it's properly classified. Because when we're giving out this statistical data, we want to make sure that we're categorizing it properly, whether it be a strong arm robbery or an armed robbery or something to that effect. I think that's really critical. But I can assure you, I think our officers, are, like I say, are very diligent in making sure that that's done.
And your other question about how I push out information for the ward meetings, it's usually on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, and I know that usually the moderators of every listserv will regurgitate it to all their listservs. And then I probably do it once a week, and then leading up to it, maybe like the third day and the second day, and then tonight it's going to happen. So it's out there, just it's a matter of, just keep pushing it. I don't really do flyers or posters. I can, but yeah, it gets out there.
We normally do the flyers for more focused events like the Essex House last week. That would be where you flyer the apartment building because people are going to stop by if they get off of work. I do think in hindsight, I don't know how many people, but there were quite a few people out at the Essex House event last week. So anyone that attended the Essex House meeting last week may not necessarily show up here today. Do you remember approximately how many people attended that? 15 to 20 people. So, I think that we normally don't have them that close in proximity, but it worked out for the Essex House. So, I think that no matter how many people are here, whether or not we have 5, whether or not we have 10 online, I think it's important that we have these meetings. So anyone, please encourage anyone that could not come out tonight. This will probably be up. City TV will probably have this up in 3 or 4 days. They can go back and they can review this. Any questions that we receive after the fact, we'll answer. Any questions that we received in writing, which I don't think we received any tonight, we'll answer those as well. But this will be available as a resource for people to go back who could not attend and be able to watch. And you don't have to watch it all at one time. You can come back and watch 10 minutes or...
With the PowerPoint too, we'll be with it.
Yeah, with the PowerPoint as well. It will have the statistical data from the PowerPoint. So. Do you need a mic? Ron, can we get... I think Ron has it.
I'm holding
I just wanted to speak to the promotion issue again, Kathy, because I think you do a great job. What I found is that a lot of our residents are not subscribed to some of those channels. And so, I mean, I've been experimenting with a whole different array of different ways to publicize. And in case I'm not on council next year, I'd like to put forward that one of the things I'm finding in this part of the city, because we have so many different types of groups of people, we have 30% Hispanic, we have about 40% people, many of whom are immigrants from other countries, and are working in different social circles, not just in different language, but in different social circles in the way they're communicating. So the physical signage, including particularly in Spanish and Amharic in the right places, I've found to be highly effective when it goes in the right places at the right periodicity. So if, for example, this is an annual thing, which I have to admit to you, I didn't know coming into council this was an annual thing, and I think it's great to know there was COVID, right? But if this is annual and there can be a 2-month lead up, it could be that physical signage, particularly in Ward 5, might go a long way, like with Spanish-speaking physical signage up on the north end. It was very, very effective for the Earth Day celebration. They put physical signage for the first time I can remember all the way down Flower Avenue, up and down. That was really, really effective. And I think going into some of those hot spots you spoke about in the Totally Fraser area, the Houston area, and embedded kind of inside of the Roanoke area, I think that could be very, very highly effective for, and just, again, experimentation to see how do we capture groups that aren't otherwise captured. And I think we're experimenting right now with these cafecitos and then maybe the barbecue, see what happens. So, hopefully we'll find a couple of good things and say, let's keep doing this. But
Yeah, I agree with that. And when we did our Santa event, we tried to do it in Spanish too, like the whole poster, and put them all around in that ward and we had like a huge turnout. So yeah, I agree with you.
We also need to look at the time that we have some of these meetings, like here we are at 7, on a Thursday. That's difficult for some people, so maybe we need to look at having something on a Sunday afternoon. So we're evaluating all of those and trying to figure out what's the best fit. For these ward-wide meetings, we find them to be in the evenings probably the best, but some of the more targeted events, like the June 1st event you're having is obviously on a Saturday, so we're willing to do that as well. So, any other questions online? Any other questions from the audience? Well, I greatly appreciate everyone coming out to this huge room. If you have any follow-up questions, please contact Kathy, our Councilmember Honzak, and she'll get them to us. We'll be more than happy to answer them. I think we have some follow-up items. I think you've already connected with our investigative services team, and we have some follow-up items regarding some juvenile crime and some other statistics that we'll definitely distribute to Councilmember Honzak, and she can get it out. So thank you very much. I appreciate everyone for coming out. Have a great evening.